Today on the Ministry Coach Podcast, we're interviewing Chace Steeves, who's an area rep for FCA in San Diego County. He shares his journey going from youth pastor to FCA and also talks about, even during this crazy time, how youth pastors can still partner with their organization to do amazing campus ministry and disciple students for Jesus. Hey everybody, welcome to the Ministry Coach Podcast, where we give you weekly tips and tactics to help you fast track the growth and health of your youth ministry. My name is Jeff Lascola, and for the first time ever, Kristen is on my right side.
What is happening? And Jeff is on my right and my left side.
Welcome to the podcast, Chace Steeves.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Chace.
Yeah.
So it's crazy because this is Chace, and to introduce him is like... to say how we know him are like a million different ways.
Yeah.
So
Story.
basically, Chace right now is the director of FCA, but he's also the associate pastor at North Coast Fallbrook, where I work. He used to be a youth pastor. He used to be in a Bible study with Jeff. We're also friends. Our daughters are in the same class. We have lots of points of connection. But mainly what we're going to talk to Chace about today is his role in FCA, what it is, and just a little bit of his story in ministry and how we can partner with FCA as youth pastors. So Chace used to be one of us. He used to be one of the youth pastors, and he has since, I don't know, promoted. Would you consider it a promotion? Well, he had a career change.
Broke free.
He's
Broke
out.
free.
He got out, you guys. How did he do it? So we want to know, like, take us a little bit through that transition from going from full-time youth pastor to then this opportunity comes to work for a parachurch organization, and why you said yes and what that journey was like.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in youth ministry since 2004. And so to go
Dang.
from, like, you know, when we're junior hires now, like
That's
older
the year
than they
I
were
started.
born. Really?
Yeah, that's the year I got hired at
Twinsies,
North Coast.
really?
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a long time.
It's been a while. Yeah. And so just thinking, I never thought parachurch ministry. Like I thought church ministry my whole life. And finally I had my dream job. I was back at the church I grew up at. My dad was a pastor there. I grew up at the church.
And that was in
Magician school.
Magician school. No, that was back here. We can say Missouri.
You're talking Missouri. Oh,
I was like, I think she's going Missouri. But
I was going to say Michigan.
oh, that makes
It
a
came
little
out.
sense.
shit.
Continue.
Yeah. So I finally got like my dream church job. Like it was a church I grew up at. Like I had a volunteer when I was in youth group, a parent who her kid was now one of my adult volunteers.
Dang.
And so just to have it like come full circle and be
So
back
was this
at,
junior high or high school?
this was both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, that's not true. Never mind. I lie.
It was so long
It was
ago.
not both.
What kind of magician are you?
No, so I was high school and young adult pastor.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I was there for 3 years. I thought we were going to be there for the rest of our life. Like
Wow.
back at the church I'd started at, like just kind of like had come full circle.
Right.
And
And it
so-
probably felt so like a God thing at the time.
Oh,
Like
totally.
this is like,
Oh yeah.
Right.
I mean, my story before that, I got let go a week before Christmas
Oh,
in
God.
Florida. And the pastor said, "Hey, we're
Wow.
behind budget. You're the newest staff member, so you're the first to go."
You're
And
the
so we-
lucky one.
ouch.
Yeah, I was a lucky one, right? Yeah, a week before Christmas, but we already had tickets to come back home because all my wife's family's still here.
Yeah.
And so we came back and visited, and the children's minister was still the same children's minister back when I was a kid, as was there when I came back to visit. It's like, hey, you know, low key, there's going to be a new position opening up at the church, and so they were going to add a pastor. So instead of junior high and high school both, they were going to have a high school and a junior high guy.
Okay.
Like, you should put your name in the hat. And so 9 months later, it was like the longest
I
process.
bet.
So I'm working at Lowe's at the time as a commercial sales guy, making $12 an hour with 3 kids. Like, what is going on here? And so like all of that, I finally got the job, and I thought we were gonna be there for forever. Like I was like, man, I could see like just being here. Like we loved it. Like family loved it. Then after 3 years, like it just got to a point where I could tell there's a change in the leadership where if I continued, it just wasn't going to be a good ending.
Mm-hmm.
And so really just began praying about, all right, like what is next? What does this look like?
Mm-hmm.
When I got hired on at Riverview, in my job description, I had to be a part of FCA. Like I literally had to put my initials down saying I'd be a part of FCA at Fallbrook High.
And
so,
if people aren't, like,
Yeah.
I assume most youth pastors know what we mean when we say FCA, but define that for us.
Yeah, so FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And so we do campus ministry. So we meet kids like right where they're at in the public schools and bring the gospel there. And we partner with the local church. So that was why Riverview was like, hey, you have to be on with FCA.
Wow.
And I, like, to be honest, I was like dreading it. Like I was at FCA at Fallbrook High when I was a student there back in 2004. And it was just like the most dysfunctional, like disorganized thing.
Wow.
Because there wasn't a staff member there from FCA. So it was all like volunteer. And even that, it just kind of gone by the wayside for a little while. So in high school, I was a part of it. But I really wanted the Riverview job. So I'm like, okay, I'll sign off saying like, I'll be a part of FCA. And then went my first week and was completely different. Like now, like my boss became a really good friend. He was leading it. And so I built like this relationship with him where, because, you know, like inside church ministry, it's really hard to talk to people about like the struggles that we're going through.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm disagreeing with this thing, or I've got this tension, or what do I do here? So he became like a neutral like counselor for me. Like just being walking through.
Like someone that can understand it, but they're not directly in it. And so it's like this confidant kind of situation. Yeah.
But he'd even call it out like, no, Chase, you're in the wrong here. Or like be really honest with, you know, just the challenges we were having. And so I started sharing with him. And then when I really began thinking, all right, God's closing the door at Riverview, like what's next? Like I shared that with him. He's like, dude, you should come on staff with FCA. I'm like, no, you're crazy. Like you have to fundraise for that job. Like, you know, like I had a guaranteed paycheck with the church, and I was like fundraise, and I had 3 kids. And I just thought it was like crazy. And so for 6 months, I was like, absolutely not. We're not doing it.
Did you consider going back to Lowe's at that point?
I thought about anything at that point. I was no, but just knowing like still feel God was calling me to full-time ministry. I was even interviewing at a church in Idaho. I was like, maybe like just a whole change again. And so kind of began that. And in fact, as we were talking between the two, it really came down to FCA or Idaho. Great intentions, but my family members like, we'd rather have you move out of state than go into FCA. Wow. Like not because they didn't like FCA, because of like the fundraising and just like the foolishness.
Okay,
of,
just like it seemed like not a super stable
not
thing.
Smart. Like you have 3 kids all under.
Well, I was gonna say it'd be different. Like maybe you're single and you're living at home, you're checking it out, but like you like have to have some stability because you're the primary or the sole breadwinner in your family. So yeah, and
especially, you know, Southern California, just one income alone is hard. Let alone take that away. Like, how do we not end up on the street? So like with great intention, family members are like, we'd rather come and visit you once every year than have you stay local. And I began wrestling with that as well, because I'm a people pleaser by nature, right? So like I want everyone to like me. And when like family was like, I don't know about that, like I struggle with that. And so that began for me, like just a walk. Like I chewed through the book of Acts, like read Nehemiah, just like that idea of like having a big dream that doesn't necessarily make sense by going in obedience. And I was reading a book at the time by Mark Batterson. It's called The Circle Maker. And he had this saying, he said, if your dreams don't intimidate you, your view of God's not big enough. And like that rocked me. Like that idea of like, okay, I've been playing it safe for a really long time.
Sure.
Like I got really comfortable to the point like I could operate in my own strength. Like within youth ministry, like because it was easy. And
Did we just hear that? Like I think that is like the soundbite for the episode of getting comfortable enough to operate in your own strength. Like and like kind of putting myself in your position too. Like how difficult, because you know people always say, well, like seek wise counsel, like when you make decisions, and the people closest to you are telling you like, no, like don't do this, but then you feel this pull of like, but I think this is where God is leading, and that living in that tension a little bit, like that's pretty fascinating. And
that was like brutal. Again, like a people pleaser. Like I want everyone to agree 100% with every decision I make. And like, just like the reality that's not going to happen. And so,
and you know, what's funny of how like doing ministry to me, like, wow, what a high calling. Right. But then to have family from the outside looking in, instead of saying like, oh my gosh, you want to give your life, just like, oh, like, I don't know. It doesn't, like my dad, he'll still ask me like, when are you going to stop working at that church? And like,
get a real job.
Basically,
Sure,
you know,
sure.
and I think he's kind of given up on that conversation now because here we are 17 years deep or whatever it is.
Sure.
But, you know, you would expect the people closest to you to be very like, what? You're going into ministry? But then looking at it from that lens of like, I don't know, like starving artist, like sounds like a dream, but like, let's be realistic.
Well, it's almost the same thing as if you're going to get a job that's like all sales or commission based, I should say. That sometimes gets like, I can make, not that you're saying this about FCA, but it's like, I can make so much money. It's like, yeah, but the reality is it's hard. Like hard to get out. It's similar in the sense that you're creating your own income, and fundraising can be difficult, awkward. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced all those things. Having to approach people and then maybe get rejected, and I can't imagine.
Yeah, we have a saying with FCA. My boss told me this, like, Chase, the key to thriving in FCA is embrace the awkward. I'm like, that's really fast. I hate awkward. I'm like, I'll avoid it at all costs. But I do, like, sometimes we got to do hard things that are not easy. Even when I was a youth pastor, like having conversations with volunteers who had crossed over a line, and as a younger guy having to come to some older volunteers and just walk through that process. Like, I wanted to avoid that at all costs, but no, better the ministry, better myself as a leader, but ultimately just submit to what God's calling us to.
For sure.
Like, we have to embrace the awkward.
Well, and I mean, who said leadership was fun?
Oh, I know.
You know, like it's
Someone
totally
crazy.
not. So, you know, like people will come, like, I don't know if this happened to you when you're a youth pastor, but I'll have students or like, I want to do what you do, you know, when I grow up, or I want to, and I'm like, what you see is like this much. Like, if you knew everything I actually had to do, I don't think you would sign up for this. Like Chris Brown, one of the senior pastors at our church, he always has this saying is, if you can do anything else, if you can
By all
picture
means,
yourself doing anything else, do that. If you want to be a cop, go be a cop. If you want to be a firefighter, go be a firefighter. He goes, if you have any desire anywhere else in your heart, go do that thing. Which is so funny hearing your story, is because I feel like you were like, no, I can't do anything else. Maybe it's a challenge. Maybe I have, you know, some tension in the family, but it's like, this is, as hard as it may be, this is where I feel like God's leading.
Yeah. And I mean, not treating that decision lightly either, right? Like, I mean, we're talking 6 months of me saying no, like I'm not leaving church ministry, like absolute no. Like I tried to talk myself out of, I tried like doing interviews with the person interviewing my boss, like I wouldn't hire me. Like I don't want the job, but like kept on coming back through it. And like I wrestled for months just personally praying through that. And, you know, being married, it's like, man, what is Chelsea? Like what, like, cause I firmly believe like, God put the desire in my heart first, but at some point through that, whether she's gonna be all in or just a little bit, God was gonna put that on her heart as well. And so for months, just privately praying, Lord, like if this is really what you want, put that burden on Chelsea's heart as well.
And that's huge wisdom, because Larry Osborne, hey Larry,
Hey, Larry.
I quote him almost every episode. I'm waiting for him to like acknowledge it. But anyways, I was listening to one of his archived sermons today, and he was saying, like, people are always asking, like, I want to be in the will of God, I want to be in the will of God. And he said he had like 6 things, and the very last one he said, listen to your spouse. He's like, because the Bible says that the two of you have become one. And if God is speaking, he's not just going to speak to half. And he's not going to just speak to the old one. He said he's going to speak to the new one, the two of you together being one. And so he's like, it's not just whoever's the most aggressive. He doesn't just speak to the one who's the loudest or who throws the biggest fit or gets, you know, always seems to get their way out of intimidation. He said it's that God needs to like align both of your hearts. So it's just so funny hearing you say that about your desire for Chelsea to like, okay, if she comes on board, then I know like that God is in this. Where I think some people might just say like, all right, whether it's the man or the woman, submit, like we're going to drag you into it, you know, because you're both signing up for it, you know.
That's the thing, like I was taught early on, it's like, listen, they're not just hiring Chase, like, like Chelsea's a part of this as well. And so like that wisdom early on, like I've taken with me, like not saying Chelsea was totally sold out with FCA. Like she was kind of like me. I was waiting for her to say no, so I got my out of like, not doing fundraising. like just give me that. But ultimately, like we both just got I think it's scary, like it's terrifying us. But I think like God's calling us to that. And I got really convicted. Like I was reading Acts as well, like in my Devo at the time, and just seeing like where Jesus and the disciples like went to the people, right? And like, hey, I'm gonna meet you where you're at. And it hit me. I had a student, and this was kind of like the icing on the cake. I was already almost there, and then I had a student come up to me after youth group, and best of intentions, and she's like, Chace, like I love Velocity. It's like the lamest youth name ever, right? Velocity. But she's like, Chace, I love Velocity.
Reminds me of a dinosaur,
right?
Velociraptor.
We did a camp called Velociraptor where we were whitewater rafting. That was our hashtag. So.
Love it. That is such a mean name. I love the cheesy puns. Yeah, that's
cheesy
great.
puns. That's right.
Brilliant.
But she came up to me and she goes, Chace, I love our youth group because it's safe and I know everyone here. And I was like it like broke my heart on the inside because like God didn't call us to like safety. Right. Or to comfort, but to impact. And I was like, okay, like maybe I've exhausted my impact here with kind of where I was at with the leadership. I was at the point where I left on really good terms. Like the church still supports me, like prayerfully, financially. So it's awesome. But if I had stayed, I think it would have been a different story. And so be able to leave on like really good terms. For me, it got to a point when I knew I could tell the senior pastor, hey, we're going to go into FCA. And I was willing for him to say, all right, we're cutting, your salary now. Like you got 2 weeks, we're going to find a new guy. Yeah. You're without a paycheck effective 2 weeks from now. Like when I could get to that point, being okay with that, I knew that was God calling us into FCA. And praise God, didn't happen that way. The church was super supportive. We went awesome. Like months of being able to support. In fact, when they got the new guy, like, hey, we're gonna have to stop paying you now. I'm like, well, actually, what if you give me 2 more months with full health insurance? And they like totally agreed to it. They're like, oh wow, yeah, right.
Wow, so they must like really like you.
Just that, but again, it's like that affirmation along the way. And so I wrestle with this line of like, okay, when God calls, He provides, right? Like we've heard that
for sure.
But like define providing, right? Like, does that mean worldly success? Like you're going to have the new house and the car. Right. Or like, look at Paul, right? Like God clearly called and shipwrecked, beaten. Right. Like,
I know.
It's like, but you don't doubt the calling.
Right.
So I don't know, like it doesn't guarantee wealth or prosperity. Like,
well, and being in the will of God doesn't mean smooth sailing. Absolutely. And I think sometimes we like confuse that. Like, I just want to be in God's will because we think like whichever path that is, that'll be the good, easy. I mean, it's good. Maybe that's the wrong word. God's will is always good, but we think like it'll manifest into our definitions of success and ease and comfort. And it's like, but when we look at a lot of the historical figures in the Bible, being in God's will meant like challenge big time, suffering big time. And going back to that thing we said, like ministry is hard, whether you're in the church full time as a youth pastor or where you're transitioning out into something else doing, whether it's a different role or a different organization. Like ministry is hard. Leadership is hard. Being in the will of God is hard. But like you're saying, like He still took care of you guys, and like we could argue like, Paul faced some hard times, but God still took care of him. I mean, there's so many things along the way in his story where it's like, there's no other explanation than God's provision and care. But it's still scary, and now looking back, like, so how long are you out of youth ministry and how long have you been in FCA now?
So for 3 years.
That's what I was going to guess. Okay. 3 years. So
13 months fundraising. Like, so I was convinced we were going to get fundraising. I had read this book called The God Ass by Steve Shadrach, and he laid out this plan. I'm like, 100 days, I'm going to be 100% funded. And convinced of it. Like told Chelsea that, like had like, notes on like our walls, like just like I was all pepped up like 100 days. It turned into 13 months. Wow. And so, but even seeing within that, like sometimes I feel like, personally speaking, like I will say no to something because there's a fear associated with it. Like I can't do this because it doesn't make sense. Like when my family members, great intentions, but said, Chace, don't. Right. Like I think we got to get to a point where, and I sought wise counsel for that whole thing, right? Like obviously Chelsea was on board after a while. Like I talked to other people and it's like, okay, it's just absolutely foolish And where's that line between faith and foolishness? Like, I wrestled with that a lot. I still don't know the answer, but like, I think it began just getting affirmed to me. Like, the burden could not go away. Like, I just been so burdened for,
and
like,
that's
our
it.
schools.
I think because there's no value in risk.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Again, Larry, maybe we should just have Larry on this podcast and he should just interview me. But anyway, on why I love his books and sermons. But so Larry, he's like, you know, there's no value in risk itself. He's like, you don't just go out on a limb and like, better save me, God, I'm going out on the deep end. He's like, but you know, if you're walking in obedience, he's like, obedience is so much different than just, let's be risky for risk's sake. You know, you don't just risk your family's security and, you know, taking care of your family. And because I'm sure if it came down to God saying, hey, go back to Lowe's, like, this is, you know, I'm going to use you here, you'd be like, okay, you know, but that, like you said, that burden and that desire and like you can't do anything else, then like, I think that's where you have to like just make that hard decision of like, this is hard, but I know I can't do anything else. Right.
And at some point it also goes, prolong that, it then becomes disobedience too, right? Or like, just because it's hard, I'm saying no, I'd now be being disobedient. And so like, I wrestle with all of that and just that really wanted to be wise and provide for, you know, the family. And then through that process, so 13 months, we had a kid in that time. We moved in that time, like just all sorts of stuff happened, seeing, but like the affirmation along the way, like that God was just going to show up and do some really cool things. And he has. And I mean, I've watched, you know, like we went from like, hey, he's the youth pastor down like the street because our churches are the two only EV-free churches in our small area. And so we had a lot of crossover there. So we went from like co-youth pastors to like watching you like, wow, like this is actually happening and the fundraising and like up and running and all that. But, you know, even thinking, okay, what if you had said no? And you're like, no, I'm staying at Riverview. No, I'm going to stay in my youth pastor position. I'm too scared. I'm not going to do it. I mean, I have to believe, well, God would have had a plan B for you. God would, because sometimes I feel like it's like, oh no, what if I don't get on this boat and then it's gone and then God's whole plan is thwarted, you know? I think there's a best way, you know, so you listening to that prompting and like Chelsea getting on board and all the fundraising coming in and all of that, that was probably plan A, the best way, you know, but God would have, if you had missed it for some reason out of fear, then I believe he would have had a plan B or C or D, or it might have been longer.
Well,
it might have been harder.
Plan A can even be guiding you down that path to take you somewhere else. And maybe FCA wasn't the end goal, although it sounds like it was, and that was your obedience and following him. But sometimes it's God will take you down a path to take you somewhere where you see the destination, but he's like, that's not the destination. Absolutely. I'm taking you down this way to bring you over here. And so, you know, just the obedience and following that can be tough because you're like, wait, everything was pointing here and now it's not. So now am I in disobedience? But you're not, you know, so.
Well, even like starting out, I mean, if someone had told you 17 years ago, you're going to be in full-time ministry into your 30s or whatever, you'd been like, I mean, maybe you always thought that, but I think of where I was heading. I'm like, well, I'm going to Biola. I'll probably meet someone there. We'll get married. And then I'm going to get into like, I want to be in some kind of hospitality industry, maybe like a concierge or something, and work in resort management. And then, you know, we'll see where we move. And it's like, I didn't even make it to Biola. I was at a state school working 3 jobs and going,
all
doing
downhill from there.
And then this clown volunteered for me. But it's just so crazy, like where you picture yourself and then the detours God takes you on. But that's where you see like things about yourself you never knew, and like never knew what you were capable of. Those awkward conversations that you're able to have. And when, like, I have seen you just win people over, and just that like very confident leadership, but so personable, like the God using all that chasteness in there to like because you can do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, and he started working for FCA. I had never heard of FCA.
Sure.
So I mean, even the acronym, I was like, you're going to have to repeat it. What does that mean again? And it was one of those things where I knew the organization based off of who you were. And I'm like, if Chace is in it, then I know this is a legit thing because of your character, you know. So, tear. Oh my gosh,
And he's been
you're all
trying
grown
to
up.
look like you ever since. When I look at us in the monitor, I'm like, this is so weird. It looks like one of those camera tricks. But I mean, I know you guys don't. It's just there's similar features. Okay, we know FCA is. Loved hearing so much of your story and just how God's been working in it. So now, like, help us out, the people you used to be. And right now, like, like your guys' main value is connecting with kids on campus. And I've done tons of stuff with you at the junior high school in Fallbrook, and it's always going so well. And we have kids come into classrooms and we give them pizza and we play a game, and like me or you would do a message or something. And there's community built. And it's so great, but now school looks so different. And so campus ministry is either non-existent or really difficult. So like, give us kind of a forecast on like, what is campus ministry now? What can we as youth pastors do to get on campus or connect, or even if there's no campus to get onto in some cases, like what would you tell us right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, right? Like, what does campus ministry look like when there's no campus, right?
Yeah.
And I wrestle with that. Like, March 12th is when we hit in Fallbrook. Like, school shut down. And at first, I was like, okay, cool, a long spring break, right? Like, I'll take it. Like, I need a break. I'm exhausted. Like, we're running hard. And then when it turned into, okay, now school's done for the semester. School starting next semester is going to be online. Like, how do we remain essential? Like, when everything's trying to push us off of that, like, what does that look like? And so luckily we as a staff for years have been working on, we've kind of felt like this is going to be coming anyways. Like, our ease of access onto our schools, it's just in our culture, it was already getting harder and harder.
Sure.
Like, some of our schools in San Diego County were already shutting the doors with FCA. So we already knew like the writers on the walls is going to be more difficult.
Right.
We just didn't know it was going to hit in 2020 with like a complete like reboot of what it was. So so how do we stick to our same vision, right? To use the influence of coaches and athletes to impact our community with the gospel of Jesus Christ. So how do we keep to that vision when the models totally change, right? We're no longer Wednesdays, midweek, at lunch, bribe them pizza and give them Jesus. Like, we've lost that. And so we started doing like team huddle based stuff. And so where we're partnering with student athletes, or if they're not an athlete, just like students in like, we'll call them a community huddle, where we'll just train them up in discipleship. And I'm loving that because I think and I was so guilty of it, like making discipleship super intimidating. Like, you know, you hear the word discipleship and like the first thing you probably get like sweaty palms and like, I'm not ready for that. Like it terrifies you.
I
right?
have to sell everything I own, and what is this all?
Or it's like, how many 50 books do I have to read to understand like discipleship? And like, I just think at the end of the day, like, we've made it too complicated. But we're called to make disciples, right? Like, go and make disciples, not just converts. Like we're called to like do life together.
Right.
And so I've been really excited with this model that we're going, where we're training either one-on-one or in a group. Like, I've got a group as big as 12, and then one-on-one with multiple students. Going through, FCA has a thing called the core. So it's like 8 foundational truths to having your Christian faith. And
so how do you access these students? Like, are you guys meeting off campus, or?
For now, it's off campus.
Okay.
Yeah, because in San Diego County and most schools, there's no corporate gatherings on campus.
So how do they find, like, how's that connection bridged between you and them?
Yeah, so that's been cool. Like, it started just, I've been on campus for 2 years, you know, 1 year fundraising and 2 years already on campus. So I already had some of those relationships. And then just with partnering with local churches, like, you know, I've kept in touch with the students. And so then just sharing with them like this new direction with it. Hey, we're equipping you with all the tools and resources you need to go and point other people towards Jesus Christ. And so,
and is there an in for a youth pastor in that model? Like, have any youth pastors come alongside or joined, or like, do they have access to these I want to say cohort, but you didn't use that word.
Yeah, huddles. We got to play. It's got to be sport themed in some way, right? So
Okay.
yeah, huddle. But yeah, absolutely. And we're still working on what that looks like. Where our goal with FCA was never to become a burden to the local church. Like we never want to be like, oh, we got 12 youth pastors who know how to do great Bible studies. Let's just pull all of them in. Like, shoot, you just created more work for me now.
Okay,
Like that's
yeah.
never been our heart. We want to ease the burden of you guys.
Sure.
And so yes, there's totally a place. And it's very unique to what each youth pastor can handle, what they want. Some are like, sweet, I love to lead a small group. Others are like, hey, I'll come alongside. I'll be your biggest champion. And, I'll bring pizza and just hang out and like just be there and support you. So it's kind of wherever, the youth pastor has time for, they want to be a part. But that's our hope. Like, I envision in this area, having like 15 different of these micro huddles, these team huddles by the end of the year. And that could be a one-on-one. Like I'm doing it one-on-one with some students. So they could find one other student and go through it. It could be in a group setting. Like I got one student, he's a sophomore on the football team. He's going to hopefully take his whole football team through it.
Wow.
So like a win for me is either one of those. I don't care if
Right.
it's one. I just care that there's obedience and we're going out and we're like living our faith out loud. And so, so that's what our hope is. But even with that, it's like, okay, if I have 15 of these huddles going around, I've got 5 days out of the week. Like I don't want to be the guy for all of that.
Right.
That's where it's like, okay, what does it look like for the next step? After I finish this 8-week course, right? This discipleship program, like what does it look like beyond that?
And like as an FCA guy, like you've been on both sides. You're an FCA, you've done the youth pastor, you're still like employed by the church and you have a foot in both. Like what is an FCA director? Because you're the North Fallbrook director. Okay. Say the Fallbrook magician.
So I'm the Fallbrook Bonsall area rep.
Okay. So for those of you that aren't from here, that's like North County, San Diego.
Yes.
And so like what is your dream as the FCA director for this particular region? Like if you could paint a picture of the ideal partnership between us, the church, youth pastors, whatever, and you, FCA guy, meeting with students, discipling them, campus ministry, what to you is the perfect union there?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. Like, I think it's multifaceted, right? I think for sure at first, like we want to come alongside of you guys as the youth pastors and be that support piece. So it's like, I have an open invitation to any youth pastor in town. If you need a break, like I remember being a youth pastor and sometimes I just want a weekday off. Like I don't want to be the Tuesday or Wednesday night from, early in the morning with staff meeting to getting home at 11 o'clock at night. Like if you need a break, like I will come and speak at your youth group, like free of charge. Like you don't have to charge me because I know what budget costs as well.
We don't have to pay you.
You don't have to.
I've been paying you. I've been paying you this whole time.
No, but
Is that specific to like that's what your heart is, or that's FCA across the board nationally that they would offer that?
I think that depends on the staff. Okay. Nationally across the board, our heart is to come alongside and be like the biggest cheerleader for our local.
Because I think a lot of youth pastors' ears perked up when they thought,
sure,
so they come on.
And I have that background teacher of like I love to teach, right? Not every FCA guy does, but I think the worst I could do is say no. But I think you'd be surprised more often than not. You can get an FCA staff member that would like love to do that.
And you were regular for us. I mean, you were like twice a month.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
One might say abused.
Again,
I always give me the bomb. Yeah. I always got the best Amazon gift card, which got me new discs. So my disc golf collection went up quite a bit when I was helping you out.
When you said discs, I thought you meant like CDs. I was like, Chase, let me introduce you to Spotify. Why are you buying CDs on Amazon, you loser?
Disc golf. I was going to add golf on it because otherwise,
It's just sports talk. Everyone knows like what discs are. Yeah. You can tell I was a student athlete.
I think we confuse half of your audience with discs alone because it's not a very popular. It's growing, but
are cheerleaders invited to your FCA thing?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Because some people don't think
cheerleader, so
I was a cheerleader, and some people say it's not a real sport.
Oh, it's a sport. My daughter's doing it right now, and it is intense.
Did you all hear that?
That's right.
Cheerleader hater nation.
It's official. Yeah, so like that's our heart, right? Like I want to be there for you guys. I think my other heart is, like Lecrae. I'm a huge Christian like rap guy, like cheesy.
I thought you were gonna say LaCroix.
I Charles
Right when you
corrected
stopped
him
him, I knew
and
that.
said, actually, it's pronounced LaCroix.
I don't think that's even the right pronunciation.
LaCroix.
He's the French Lecrae. Go ahead.
But he said his saying, it was generally directed towards race, but I've kind of applied it to like the church as a whole. Like he says, why is the most segregated time of the week Sunday morning? Like, what does that say about the God we worship? And just thinking that, and even looking like in our small town of Fallbrook, right? Like we have a street called Church Row where there's so many different churches.
Sure.
And I lived in the Midwest for a little while. Like there were more churches than there were people. Like it's just, there's churches on every corner, right? But like, what is that showing the world? Like, man, we're so fractured. We can't even. Like,
I don't know what to attribute that to. I've always wondered. I don't know.
I think it's just people like, I wasn't happy with that, so I'm gonna go start my own thing, right? Like how many church plans have started with, I was frustrated with the church, so I want to create my own thing, right? Which has its own problems as well.
Right.
But like just seeing, there's a lot of commonality. Like a lot of the local churches in Fallbrook fly the same banner Jesus, right? There's those who don't, like who we don't team up with, but those that we do, like how beautiful could it be if we could show the community, the churches rallying together to point students towards Jesus Christ, like, and the unity that we could bring within that. And so that's my other heart as well, is like, let's just stop showing the world how fractured we are, and point to that we have in common.
Well, I feel like FCA does a really good job of that in kind of maybe an intentional, unintentional way. But like, I remember you starting like the group me chat with like all of us youth pastors, and there were names on there of people I didn't even really know, but they were all invited to come to this, and you would send out the times and the places to be here, or, hey, can anyone speak for this? And it just was like, oh, like, whoa, here's all the people in my community that are doing the same thing as me. And sometimes we get so busy on our own thing. Like there was a time when I did meet with all the youth pastors in my community. Like we met once a month, and we haven't done that in a long time. I think I only know a couple of them now, but yeah, like what a great vision to like one central organization like FCA who's for the students, kind of like neutral territory, and like to bring us all in on the mission too.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So I can't wait to see in the potential that could bring of like, what would it look like if we weren't worried about our individual numbers and like just worried about, I just want to impact our community, like the big picture of that. And so, it's easy for me to say now as a neutral guy, like,
come on, everybody, we all need to get along.
How come you're not on board with me? It's like, because I have a pastor who's like, I gotta have, whatever be the case. And so,
well, okay, so then kind of more of a personal question then, is there any tension like with you, like having to like spread yourself out with all the other churches? Like you can't favor one over the other. You need to make sure you're pouring into everyone, because like that sounds like a big job to maintain relationships with all these churches that are funneling into these high schools. Like you have to not only be, relational with these students, but you have to reach out now to however many churches funnel into that high school or junior high.
Yeah. I mean, and now be on staff at North Coast as well, right? It's like, how do I stay neutral? And I think, the beauty is, I think every one of our churches in town have like their unique flavor, right? And so when a student comes in, like I can get to know them through FCA. Like I'm like, hey, this may be a good fit for you, or where are your friends at? And I can point them towards that. So like, and I've had tremendous freedom even be on staff with North Coast. Like I love that, where I don't feel like every kid that comes in, I have to say, come to North Coast or I get in trouble, right? Like there hasn't been that at all, which has been beautiful, like through this process also of just thinking, man, ultimately we just want what's best for these kids, and where can they get started? Do they want a smaller Bible study that has, a smaller group of kids? Well, I can point them towards that church. Right. Do they want a bigger church where, there's more energy, or there's more resources, there's more life group, like whatever be the dynamic.
You're kind of like a broker, like a church broker.
Yeah, I just don't get paid for that part of it. I need
you
to establish
got
a commission
your
from
discs. Be grateful.
Yeah, and I think that's what's fun with that, but also making sure it's like the churches that we're pointing these kids towards. Yeah. Like, are they preaching the Bible? Like,
absolutely.
Are they discipling kids? Is the main thing the main thing? Are we getting stuck in these weeds on these issues that aren't? And so
that's cool.
Yeah.
And you probably have a pulse on all of that. So
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, that's my desire, at least, is to have that. You know? And so,
And you guys you have a cool event coming up, and this is national, right? Your golf thing. You're going to play, right?
Yeah, I played last year. Chase will tell you more about it, but it's a really fun event. 100 holes of golf.
100 holes, one day.
Right. And I started doing the math and the amount of time it would take to do these 100 holes. And I'm like, we're not playing regular golf here then, are we? So tell us a little bit about that.
Because that's a great way that youth pastors can support you, that the community can support you. You know, like we can obviously partner with what you're doing, but getting people involved in the golf tournament, I have sent him in my stead. That's how I will support. But yeah, tell us.
It's hard work. It's hard work.
He loves to golf.
You were sore the next day.
That's true.
Sure. We're sacrificed for Jesus on the
right.
Wow, riding around on your little cart.
Yes. Yeah, it's hard.
Drinking.
It's not just riding around. There is some running involved. I came out of my golf shoes. Remember, I broke out of my golf shoes. Hey, it's a rough life.
Wow. I didn't realize golf was so action-packed. So
FCA golf is action. Yeah.
So is this the biggest fundraiser you guys do?
No.
Okay.
But it's one of them for sure.
I like to think it is because I'm involved.
Because you're involved with it. Yeah. It's the biggest one you're involved with.
Well, tell us a little bit about it and how people can get involved.
Yeah, so it's a San Diego-based one, and so we've been doing it for years. And essentially, it's like a jogathon for school, right? Where like your student will be like, "Hey, would you sign up to every lap I run? Will you give me $1?" Like that's what this is on a bigger level. And so we'll play 100 holes of golf in a day. And Jeff is trying to find people to sponsor him to play on behalf for FCA Fallbrook and Bonsall. And so, and then we play, it's like shotgun style, or like you're in your golf cart, Jeff's hitting, I'm flying down, trying to dodge his golf ball as I find it. And I'm like,
you act like I don't place my golf ball exactly where I want it off the tee.
None of us do. Not with this. But we have that one guy, every time he's got the yardage finder out. Right. He's like 6 hours in and he's 20 holes. We're like, dude, you got to speed it up here. Let's go.
So it's kind of I sent out my feelers on Facebook because I wanted to do it, make it a little more fun this year to raise some money and put some challenges for myself if I hit certain amounts. And I don't know if I'll reach any of these, but it might be fun.
No,
but
that
so
confidence.
a couple, I know, right? Well,
that's right.
You guys have to support me. Those of you listening and watching.
Circle maker, make that circle.
So I want to read.
Circle maker, make me a circle.
I want to read some of the things, and these aren't necessarily the ones that I took as my set, but some of the ones that people said, if I hit a certain amount, shave my head, and I was like, you're not paying attention, I don't think, to what's going on.
You always wear a hat.
So yeah, so that I think that one's off. Wax my chest hair or leg hair.
Kelly Clarkson.
Now, see, yeah. Here's the thing. I'm willing to do some stuff, but there's a few categories that I'm not willing to. I'm not a big fan of pain. So most pain things, I'm probably gonna eliminate every challenge, but I'm not a fan of pain, and I can't do like gross eating challenge stuff because I've got acid reflux and all kind of stomach issues.
Baby.
Hey, it's a hard knock life, and I'm like I'm not gonna eat because someone said eat a dehydrated tarantula.
I like that one. I saw that.
You can do that one, but I mean
this is for you.
I know, but on my behalf, would you? I'm not doing.
Chase has to go regardless. Okay.
Shave my eyebrows. And I was like,
no, I'm afraid they won't grow back.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I'm afraid they wouldn't grow back. Kiss a pig. I don't even know a pig, but get tased.
It's Fallbrook.
That's true.
That's true.
Get tased by police.
Ooh, I know a police officer.
I had a friend who did that, and he said it was bad for days. So I'm like, I don't know if
I got sprayed by police grade mace once. That was a bad.
For
$100,
less likely to do
dumb.
that.
Was it not worth it for $100?
No. I regret it instantly.
This one says, get in the octagon with an MMA fighter. Now, at first I was like, heck no. But then I was like, wait, it just says get in the octagon. I don't have to fight, right? Just handshake and then get out. I don't know an MMA fighter. And then wrestle a bear. And I thought, what the money it would take to get to that point might not be worth the money that it raises. So
we'd be way more likely to meet a pig than a bear.
So what I did, and these are much less cool than some of those, but so $200. If I just ranged 200, that's a very low amount. I hope that would hit that. $200. I will rock just the mustache. Okay, I'll shave everything else off. That's like, okay, big deal. Most guys do it anyways.
For how long?
Maybe like a week or something like that. So I'll do that as long as she can take it. So that's, we're just kind of easing in.
Little known fact, when this
No, I'll get there. I'll get to that. Okay.
Oh.
For $500, I'll shave my entire face. And so I have not had no facial hair in decades. Like there's never been a point where there's no facial hair. Now because I have no like jaw or chin. And so it's one of those things where it's like it goes chin to like chest. So I have to have some sort of facial hair.
And it makes his face looks miniature.
Yeah, it looks really small. Well, that's when I've shaved it close,
cute.
but I've never shaved it.
This is a big sacrifice. I appreciate it.
It's more for her than me, really.
It's not cute.
Okay, for $1,000, I'm gonna wear a wig for a week, and I have a pretty ridiculous wig.
We should have brought it and shown them.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a Beatles kind of like bowl cut wig, but I think if you turn it around backwards, it's kind of like this really dirty, disgusting mullet look. So I'm gonna wear that for a full week. For $2,000, I will let our two daughters, we have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old, Sharpie on my face. They can choose colors where I'll give them like a time limit, maybe it's like 10 seconds or something like that. They can put all, and I won't intentionally wash it off for like maybe like a week.
You'll just let it
like
ride its course.
I'll just like naturally kind of like I'm gonna wash my face, but not like intensely scrubbing it off. And then for $20,000, I will get a tattoo. And that has to be my own choosing, and in my own, I'll get to choose the location. So yeah, so that's my contribution. So hopefully
thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully a lot of people will.
That's
I'm leaving it up to you
guys.
You guys need to make this happen, and then I will do my part. So.
I feel like you made the tattoo thing a lot less exciting when you said you get to choose it. Just saying, if you want to up the ante.
I'm uninked though. I don't have any ink on me anywhere. So.
Well, I don't know if you guys knew this, but when Jeff was younger, he wanted to get a Punisher skull tattoo on his calf.
Yeah.
Which
that was my
Fine younger, like last year.
I was
younger?
about 15 or so. That's why I was always afraid to ever get a tattoo, because like there's those moments in your life where you're like, I would love to have this. And then you think now being older, it's like, oh my gosh, if I would have done that, that would be like the worst thing ever.
Well, speaking of God's will, it was God's will that you didn't get it, because we wouldn't be sitting here today.
I know, right?
Because that would have been a deal breaker. All right, well, let's move back to Chace. So anyways, we ask all of our guests one of 3 questions. Chace wanted to answer the question, what would your career be in an alternate universe? No ministry. What are you doing?
Oh, that's easy. I'd be a professional disc golf player.
Okay. Yes.
Disc is going back.
That's the expression I get every time. They laugh at me.
Because all I want to say in my head is, you mean frisbee golf, the game we play at youth camp.
For the layperson.
Oh, wow.
Is that cursing?
That's
in the frisbee garden, disc golf. I can't even say it.
It's okay. That I'm sure it's very lucrative. What is the top guy making right now? Like,
yeah, the top guy's making $1 million.
Yeah.
Is that like just tournament money, or is that ad or not advertising? What's it called?
Like sponsorships? Yeah, that's like sponsorships.
And what is everyone else making? Unless you're the top, what are you? What?
I mean, if you're like the bottom 95%, you're paying to play professional disc golf.
So just like at youth camp, you like give them $1, they give you some discs.
Yeah,
okay.
it's more than
So
$1,
all my
but
students are professional youth or professional disc golf players. Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
But I will Google that, because as a cheerleader, I know what it feels like for people not to legitimize your sport.
It's a legitimate sport.
I know.
All right, so Chace, where can people get a hold of you? How can they contact you? Instagram, stuff like that.
Sure. We have Instagram and Facebook at FCA Then we have a website. I should know that. SanDiegoFCA.org.
Okay.
Or if you want
Google
to see, you can Google it. Google San Diego FCA, it'll come up. Or you can see us like nationally at our main website, FCA.org.
Cool. And make sure you guys go to, I'll add it in the show notes, my little fundraising page, so you can support me. Again, it's $200, I'll rock the mustache. $500, I will shave my entire face and be just the chinless wonder. Or for $1,000,
It's hideous.
I want to see that one.
Jeez, man. For $1,000, I'll wear a wig for a week. For $2,000, I'll let Annika and Brinley Sharpie my face, and I will not intentionally wash it off. And for $20,000, I'll get a tattoo. So thank you guys so much for listening and watching, and we will see you next time.